Welcome to Breath of Fresh Air, the podcast bringing fresh insight and real talk to the world of dental practice management. Your hosts, Amanda DeMoura and Sarah Hamlin, are two industry insiders who've seen it all from the front desk to the C-suite. Amanda, the founder of Essential Dental Services, now Daydream Dental, is an operations consultant, business coach, and practice management expert. Sarah, former COO of Essential Dental Services, continues her leadership journey as the COO of Daydream Dental, a cutting-edge dental billing company. Together, they deliver unfiltered conversations on dental office operations, leadership, revenue cycle management, team dynamics, strategy, industry trends, and more. Designed for practice managers, dentists, assistants, and front office professionals, this podcast is the ultimate resource for anyone looking to optimize and elevate their dental practice. Take a deep breath, because Breath of Fresh Air is here to shake things up and help dental teams build smarter, smoother, and more successful practices.
Are you a dental professional tired of complicated contracts and hidden fees when you're ordering supplies? At Frontier Dental, they're making things simple.
With over 40,000 products from over 80 trusted brands, you'll always find your favorite products without the hassle. No contracts, no minimums, always free shipping. Plus, their team is made up of former dental hygienists and assistants, so they truly understand the needs of your practice.
Are you ready to simplify your supply ordering? Use promo code FDBOFA at checkout and get $20 off your first order.
Visit frontierdental.com to shop now and experience a better way to buy dental supplies.
Now, let's dive into today's episode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Breath of Fresh Air podcast. I'm Amanda DeMoura.
And I'm Sarah Hamlin.
What is going on the West Coast?
You know, we had like a few days of, I feel like every time we do one of these,
talk about
just
weather.
talk about the weather. Like what, I guess it's a sign of being old, kind of, maybe, I feel like.
Well, when we start talking about how the weather affects our hip, I think then we'll know that we're over.
All my joints feel in the weather. But we had a few days of very nice, like 85, definitely summer weather. Kids were outside in the sprinkler and whatever. And this last week, we're back into like the 40s and 50s. Like I am bundled up today. And the heater is back on and we have now regressed. It's no more summertime. It's back into like fall, honestly.
I'm barefoot and I'm down, my new office is down in the basement, and I was thinking earlier, like I could really use some fuzzy socks, but it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right to put them on right now.
I know. What is happening? Ugh.
So I obviously already told Sarah this, but I am trying to grow a giant pumpkin this year. Mm-hmm. So I have planted many seeds. Only one has come up. So I do have some foliage going on, and I am so curious to see if I can actually grow. And I'm talking like the kind you see at fairs, like where they're...
So this is so curious to me, because I have also seen stories of people who like left their pumpkin from like Halloween time, like outside, and it like, you know, rotted and fell apart in their yard. And then they literally grew like a huge pumpkin plant just because it like, you know, happened on its own. So if you've put a whole bunch of seeds in and you only have one, I'm very suspicious of those videos.
I agree. No, well, I do remember being like a teenager and that happens. Like our pumpkin blew off the stairs and then we got a snowstorm and then that was it. And then the next year, all of a sudden, like, seems like there's a pumpkin growing in the front yard. And there was. So that's how, why I think the seeds that I got are just old or something, but all I need is one plant.
Okay, so
and then
next year, just go drop the pumpkin in your garden. Like, don't do anything. Just set it there, let it disintegrate, and you'll maybe have better luck.
So these, I mean, I am not expecting to grow one that's over 1,000 pounds by any means, but that's how big they can get. And those are the ones that like win the prizes. Yes, they're huge.
But what would you guys do? What would you guys do? Let's imagine what your husband would do if you let this pumpkin grow to 1,000 pounds in your yard.
Well, that has crossed my mind. That's kind of like the first hurdle. Something actually sprouting and being pollinated and growing. The second is like, I wanted to display this big pumpkin like in the front of our house around Halloween time, but our garden is all gated and there's only a small entryway in. So there's no way to get it out unless we literally hoisted it.
All right. Well, listeners, stay tuned because this is going to be on our social media. If this all works out, we're documenting it for you to be able to see.
I can't wait. Now, my husband is a general contractor and he has, a lot of different various equipment. And like, I think he was kind of looking for an excuse to buy this particular machine where he could hoist items. So
well,
he's like, well, this will come in handy for that machine that I wanted to buy.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, I cannot wait to see come September where we're at with this progress here.
No, there's also some people around here who grow them and then they turn them into boats and like they get in them and like start paddling around. You won't see me doing that, but
wow. Okay, that would be interesting too. Can you put that on our social media?
Someone didn't believe me the other day because I was talking about that. So I had to send them a picture of someone in their pumpkin boat.
Hilarious.
All right. So this episode, we're in June and we wanted to do a bit of like a mid-year check-in, a pulse check, if you will, see what we've been seeing so far in 2025 and maybe the direction we see things going from here on out.
I just said to Amanda like earlier this week, it's mid-June. Like, how did that happen? It's not even like we're at the midpoint of the year. It's like the midpoint of the year. We're already moving to like the second half of the year. Like it's almost gone. I don't know where the time is going this year, but
to me, it seems like it was just January. It really does. My life has flown by these past 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, well, yes, you have a decent excuse. Let's just say that. But yeah, I think, and I feel that, practices and people, on the front lines of dentistry are probably feeling the same way. Like, can't believe summertime's here. Time for an uptick probably in like those kiddo appointments, right? Because people are going to be out of school.
College kids.
Yep. Schedule starting to get a little crazy. So yeah, we're here and happy to check in. I also always use Teresa's mid-year check-in
that she does
webinar. Yes. Yep. Coming up next week. That's always my indicator of like, oh my gosh, okay, we're there in the year. So looking forward to that and to hear what she has to point out to us and for us about where things are at in the industry. Also, I'm very much looking forward to, speaking of Vine, their Accelerate conference is next month, the end of July. And so excited about that one too, coming up on my schedule.
I have FOMO. My travel, I don't see myself traveling until 2026. So Sarah
it's fine.
Hitting the road without me.
All you have to do is blink and 2026 is going to be here. So don't worry. Don't worry about it.
True. If it's anything like these past 6 months, I will put a link to Teresa's mid-year check-in and Accelerate down in our show notes just because it might be too late for you to maybe go to Accelerate, but they host them at least once or twice a year. So if you miss this one, definitely next one. For our revenue cycle peeps, Sarah and I have been to one, I've spoken at one, and it was awesome. I really like, we were talking about it our last episode, these smaller boutique type of conferences that really are tackling the topics that you want to hear about and that you're interested in. I think they're much more immersive, and I feel like I learned more at them too, less overwhelm. So I'll put them in the show notes.
And some great networking. I think that's what I'm really looking forward to at Accelerate. Have already like connected with a few people that are going to be there, a few people that are speaking. So really excited just to like see people face to face. Cause I think, at least for me, I spend so much of my time on video calls these days and trapped in my own house that it will be very nice to get out and see some people in person.
Oh, definitely. There's some mastermind groups and study groups that I'm in where we meet a lot virtually. And then a couple years has gone by and sometimes I'm like, wait, I haven't even met that person live. So it is nice to meet people in person for sure.
Yep.
One thing I wanted to talk about, a trend is is practices running lean. This is a big topic right now. It has been since COVID. We've seen a lot of disruption and news about, hygiene laws and proposals for assistants to be able to do cleanings and hygiene type services, specifically in Nevada that got shut down. But things like that. Is it Idaho or Iowa? I can't remember which state, but they had state licensure for assistants and they took that away because they were thinking that was kind of a roadblock for people being able to hire assistants and on the job train them. Some of this stuff I think kind of hurts a little bit. I really want to see all 50 states do licensure for assistants. It gives, for a lot of reasons, but it gives a little more substance to the profession and the people doing it.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel like that's taking a step backwards a little bit for the profession, but I understand where we're at right now with the hiring climate.
Yeah. I think also, I don't know. I mean, I think we also kind of thought that there would just be an end to this struggle. And that has just we haven't ever reached that end, just kind of continues. And honestly, we feel it in other, fringe industries too. Like from a dental billing standpoint, we have the same, no shortage of candidates, but shortage of qualified. Yes, qualified candidates. So yeah, I think it's just kind of, it's everywhere right now, and everywhere still, I guess, is more accurate.
I think when COVID hit and we kind of saw this mass exodus of hygienists, at that time, I was thinking it is going to be years for us to bounce back because we are going to need many years worth of hygiene graduates. But we were just talking to another hygienist who left the field to do sales, and, people, it's a bit more than I think what was on the surface during COVID. There's just a lot more to it.
Yep.
And I'm very interested to see kind of where specifically the hygiene shortage goes. That's very impactful for a lot of practices not being able to hire hygienists. What do you think some ways our practices can entice people or keep the hygienists that they have?
Yeah, I think the first thing we all think about, and I think this is like the knee jerk for all practices, is like, oh, we'll just pay them more money. And I think what I hear I hear this from people in all jobs, not just hygienists, but I think it applies to hygienists too, is like there is things about workplaces that matter more to people than just the money. And we kind of touched on this like in our culture episode too, but decent hours and a good quality chair that they're using in their operatory, and a doctor that aligns with their treatment planning philosophy, and a front desk who's, helpful with their insurance benefits, and all of those things, like all of those little things really play into what makes a workplace enjoyable and what's going to help somebody want to stay working with you guys. So I think don't rule yourself out or think like, oh, I'm never going to be able to keep these hygienists, or I'm never going to be able to attract hygienists because I can't pay 3 figures an hour, whatever, some obscene wages that some places are paying, because there are other like more creative and honestly more meaningful ways to get people interested and also retain people in your office, besides just throwing more money at them.
Right. Culture is huge. And how you're appreciating your team. Are you honestly, it sounds silly, but a big thing with hygienists is their instruments. Get them some sharp instruments. Okay. Yep. That is really big. I hear people talk about that a lot. Make sure you're replacing their instruments and giving them the budget to replace the supplies that they need. They need tools to do their job. So, give them to them.
Yeah.
So that, I think that's really what it comes down to. And you're absolutely right. It's not all about the dollar amount to a lot of people. And there are surveys out there that prove that for sure.
Yep.
You know, I personally do think that one of the things that has not helped is temp agencies. You know, the rates that they are getting through the temp agencies are absolutely through the roof, and I'm not positive what I saw a dentist the other day propose that temp agencies get shut down because they are like the true crux of the problem here. I'm not sure that's the solution, and obviously they're not going to go away.
Right.
But that is a problem for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you know, people like temp agencies because they want the flexibility to be able to work when they want to work and the days they want to work, and to be able to say yes to no to certain hours or locations or whatever it might be. You know, and maybe making $150 an hour lets them
Yeah.
lets them work less. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's what I mean with like getting creative. And also I think this is like having a good enough relationship with especially a hygienist that you want to retain at your office. Sit down and have a discussion with him or her and just say, hey, I really value you and I want to make sure that you value working here. Is there anything that I can do to make your life a little better, or anything that I can do that, you know, you wish you had, or whatever it is? And they might say something as simple as, you know, I wish I had a different saddle chair to sit in because it hurts my back. Well, guess what? If all it takes is for you to buy a chair, to keep that hygienist on staff and keep that hygienist happy and keep your patients happy seeing the hygienist that they've, you know, come to know and love, and all of these things. I think that's such a small investment and such a small thing that you can do that's like shows that you actually care, shows that you're listening, shows that you're, you know, invested in them as a human. Like all of those things, just open the door and have the discussion. You never know what they might say.
I think your hygiene team, the whole team though, your team wants to be heard, and giving them the floor regularly, you know, this can be planned out, whether it's quarterly or however often, to just be heard.
Yep.
Is really important. And I think that's when you can start troubleshooting issues and working towards a place of better culture and happier employees, is by listening and then taking action, obviously, on
Yeah. And I think the other part too is like, if you can't take action right now, you know, you don't have to explain every business decision, every move that you make to your whole staff, but at least give them the respect and the common courtesy of like a little explanation. Like, I totally hear you. You want to work 3 days a week. That would be, you know, I would love to make that happen for you right now. That's not going to work from a scheduling standpoint, but I'm going to keep it in mind, and we're going to try to move, you know, there at some point or something. Just give them the benefit of a tiny bit of explanation, a tiny bit of respect in that regard. And I think that's going to, you know, work wonders for you, or go make this whole effort to have the conversation worth it.
I think this kind of just came to mind, but one thing I've also been seeing, even among kind of younger generation that doesn't have kids or anything like that, is hours. Doesn't your office hours matter? You know, are you working till 6, 7, 8? I'm finding that people don't really want to do that anymore. They do not want to work past 5 o'clock. Most of my career, I worked until 8 p.m. 2 nights a week. I went in later, but I worked till 8 p.m. And at that time in my life, I liked those hours. I was younger. It allowed me the time in the morning to get things out of the way, grocery shop, doctor's appointments, workout, maybe. And
Maybe.
Actually, back then I did work out a lot. But anyway, no kids back then. But now I'm kind of seeing people just don't want to do that. That's at least what I have been seeing. And I also think so, reevaluating your practice hours from 2 standpoints. One, do your patients need those hours? One of the things that we saw after COVID was so many people worked from home that they did not need to come at 7 p.m. anymore. They were not getting on the train and going to Boston and coming home anymore, and needed that 7 p.m. So we were able to scale back. And also, you know, from your staff standpoint, we also have a solid maybe 7, 8 people at our practice right now who are who are moms with young kids, like me, you know, toddlers and babies, and they can't work until 8 o'clock at night.
Yep.
So seeing what season of life your staff is in is important, and also your patients too. So
Yeah.
ideal working schedules. And like Sarah said, I understand hygiene is booked out, 7 months. It's not possible to say, okay, yes, next week you're on a new schedule, but setting that date on the calendar to say, this is what we're working toward, and there is an end in sight, and this is when it is. I think people will take kindly to that promise and know that there's an end in sight.
Yeah. And I think this ties into something we might touch on a little bit later, but like this is something that is honestly just it's good practice for you to do this, at least once a year, maybe twice a year, is evaluate your schedule a little bit and look and say, is there a time of day where we have people constantly no showing appointments? Or is there a certain day of the week that we just cannot keep filled in our schedule? And
Friday
if there
afternoons.
Yeah, literally I was going to say Fridays for us was always Fridays for whatever reason. You can't keep them filled. Then then don't stay open.
Right.
If you can't get patients to stay in there, why are you paying your team to be here? Why are we doing the overhead? Like, let's readjust the schedule. But you can't make those decisions and you can't make those discoveries unless you set aside the time to do those kinds of reviews. So mid-year is a great time to kind of like implement some of those. Also, we always talk about end of year because it's a good like milestone reminder for you, but it could be in September or it could be in March. It doesn't have to be, during some busy times for you guys, but just set that time aside to make sure that you are kind of reviewing these things and optimize the practice and optimize the flow to work for everyone, employees and patients alike.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break from today's convo, but don't skip this part because we want to talk about something that's actually made a huge difference, especially in my practice's bottom line, and that is supply ordering.
Oh, yeah. Okay. No, I remember you telling me this story. You were saving a ton of money. And who were you guys using again?
We switched to Frontier Dental about a year ago. I have been loving ordering from them. Their website is super fun. Each product has 360-degree views of products, which doesn't sound like a big deal, right? But when you're trying to figure out that exact pointy, extra fine burr that your doctor wants to order, or some obscure dental instrument that you've never heard of, you want to make sure that you're actually ordering the right thing.
Yes.
So I've been loving that feature.
In those instances, the 2D magazine picture that's, hand drawn by somebody else does not cut it when you need to find that specific burr. And I have obviously been there in my offices too, where we've ordered the wrong thing because of that catalog. And then you have to do the whole return shuffle, wait for your rep to come, pick it up. Maybe you'll be able to exchange it. Maybe you won't. It's just such a headache.
Right. And the pricing is the best that I have found, honestly. So that makes me keep coming back. But besides that, we've now gotten to know their team, and their culture is just awesome. They actually care about their employees and also their customers ordering from them. And it's hard to find a vendor that can combine great prices and support like that. They're constantly reaching out to make sure that our office doesn't need anything or that everything went well. And I've just been super happy. And it's unlike any supply company that I've ordered from before.
I love it because honestly, like with a lot of these supply reps and stuff, they stop by the office and everybody knows them and everybody just feels like they're there to upsell you on stuff, which they sometimes are. But in this case, it sounds like Frontier's really there to support your practice more than anything. And I love to hear that.
Exactly. So if any of our listeners are still ordering from the same old vendor and you haven't done a price check against another company in a long time, please check out Frontier. This is your sign to do it. Their website is awesome. And when we reached out to them to ask if they could offer our listeners a discount, they agreed.
Yay!
So by using the promo code FDBOFA, we'll have that in our show notes. You can get a discount off your first order. Back to the episode.
So the next thing is the rise in-house marketing and branding. I think this is a topic we're going to dive into on another episode coming up in the next couple months, and we'll kind of have an expert weigh in. But I do see a lot of teams kind of taking this back. And with people getting scrappy like myself and using Canva, it's kind of easier than ever. And especially now, Sarah and I love to use ChatGPT to help us make graphics. Some, especially for Sarah's kid's birthday party, not so great, but keep working with it.
Right. And I think that we talked about this before, but really perfect your AI prompts when you're doing things like this is, I was needing a snake graphic and I had to specify that the eyes and the mouth have to go on the head of the snake. And by the way, you made
not
the head
the middle
of
its
snake.
body.
Yes. So I think it's, you have to, it's not a total magic wand. You do have to put some time and effort into it. But also I think, social media at this point, it's so ingrained in our lives that it's a little easier for us to be able to say, I know what I like on social media from like a consumer perspective. So if you are willing to put in a little time and energy, it is more obtainable for you to put together a decent in-house like branding setup than it ever was before.
I think most of us as dental professionals are probably following some kind of dental accounts on social media. And the ones that I love the most are offices that are kind of giving us this glimpse of what the team is doing and kind of like behind the scenes stuff.
Yep.
And I think people are naturally a little kind of like voyeuristic. They want to see what's going on. They want to see what people are doing. They want to see the real you,
Yep.
And that's how people make connections. And I think if your potential patients are out there and they really like what they're seeing in the office vibe, I mean, that will definitely make them choose one practice over another.
Yep.
And that's obviously, sorry.
Go ahead.
That's obviously very easy for your team to be capturing every day is behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah. I was just going to say, like, don't ever, I hope none of our practices or listeners like lose sight of how, intimidating and sometimes overwhelming and truly like frightening going to the dentist can be for some people. And even if you're not afraid of the dentist or don't have that anxiety, it's still not the most comfortable place to be in when you're having to lay down in the chair and open up your mouth, and it just feels vulnerable. So when you can come across in your branding and your marketing as comfortable and fun and laid back, or, clean or organized, or, whatever is really going to appeal to a certain spectrum of people, like those are the things that people are looking for. And that is what in-house branding really gives you the opportunity to be able to do.
Yep. Your hands are directly on it. I talk a lot about marketing and branding, but I like to be able to have control over the narrative. And that is something you definitely have when you're doing it in-house. So like I said, we're going to take a deep dive into this in another episode. And I'm very excited for that one. So next trend is tech fatigue and vendor overwhelm. With AI on the rise right now, I feel like every company out there is launching some kind of something. And it is easy to get overwhelmed for sure.
There's too many options, exactly like you said. And then also I think what we see a lot is offices who get very excited about a certain product, sign up for it, pay for it, and then try to implement it in the office, sometimes with like minimal onboarding, minimal like
training.
Startup. Minimal training. And then the team doesn't utilize it to its fullest extent, and old habits die hard and they continue to do things the way they were always doing it, even though the office has like paid for this new product. And like, if you're going to spend the time and effort to bring in this new product, make sure you're training your team and giving them the support and guidance that they need to like actually implement it. Otherwise, you're just wasting everyone's time tenfold.
Yep, I agree. Just the other day, we use Revenue Well for our patient communications and forms and all of that good stuff and phones. And they have a great resource. It's called like Revenue Well Academy, I think. And I had to go on there and really like take a deep dive because they relaunched their Forms 2.0 and it integrates differently, which is much, much smoother than it used to be. But I wanted to be sure that I had a handle on how all of that worked and how easy it could make, our lives, especially the front office team. It's just, I'm trying to save them time because they don't have a lot of it. So making sure you're getting the proper training and setting aside time to do so, especially if the company has some kind of on-demand resources, that's awesome. And sharing those with your team is even more helpful. So you're not the only one who knows how to use it.
Yep. Also, just like that should be a question that you should definitely be asking any new company or product that you're signing up with is like, what does onboarding and training look like for us? Because truly, these companies should be offering or helping to make that transition easy for your office because honestly, it's in their best interest for you guys to use the product and use it well too. So keep that in mind when you're considering these like new softwares and features that you're implementing in the offices. How are we going to make sure that we manage this change well for our team and also to make sure this is going to get implemented the way that we want to or the way that we intend?
Yep. We started with a new credit card processor not that long ago, and they kind of onboarded us and then like let us flounder. There was not a lot of training or anything like that. And we were left to figure it out on our own. And honestly, I was just kind of like disappointed with the whole experience. So like Sarah said, that should be definitely one of the first questions that you're asking is, okay, what is the onboarding looking like? But also, where are we going after that if we need additional help or resources? Because I didn't see any other resources.
The general contact us email is not all that helpful, honestly.
No. So, fatigue and vendor overwhelm for sure. Big thing right now. And I think, for me, trying to consolidate is huge. Not even always at my practice, just in life. I mean, both Sarah and I have other things we're involved in and stuff where we just feel like there's so many different platforms that we're using for different stuff that I try to like, even when I owned the billing company, Sarah and I, we tried to really get everything on Google Drive. I did not want to be using a million different things and have a million different places for our team to go. So we consolidated that way, which was great. And that's my recommendation really is if there is a company that's doing a handful of things and you can combine other services that you're using to just one company, I would try to go that direction as long as that company is doing them all well. That's a whole other topic.
Yes, I was going to say my only caveat to that is these companies that do a lot of things very like okay. They do a lot of things kind of all right and they don't do anything super great. You have to kind of, find the balance there between consolidation and not sacrificing your quality. But there are some companies doing quite a few things and doing them all well. So, you got to do your research, but know when it's time to just make a decision and move forward also.
Yep, definitely. Okay. Well, we're talking about all the things that aren't working. What is actually working right now?
Yes, great question. I like to focus on the positive here.
Yes.
I do think it's getting a lot easier I don't want to say this because it's not actually, I'll say it and then they'll prove me wrong. I feel like it's becoming a little bit easier in this day and age to send out a clean claim the first time. I said it. This might be a hot topic, but especially with some advances in AI and like attachment software and, diagnosing software that we've seen coming out too, it's getting easier and easier to just have better resources to be able to send out those clean claims. I am sure that the payers will find some new and inventive ways to make things a little bit complicated for us. But at the moment, I am feeling very good about that, as long as you put in the time and energy to make it happen. It's still an investment, but if you put in that time, you're going to reap the results and reap the benefits in your collections and how fast you're getting your claims processed.
Yeah. I mean, I think we were talking before, like we're seeing claims pay in a matter of like a few days.
Yes, especially
So,
if we're seeing that for a lot of our clients too. If you're enrolled in EFTs, especially, I have seen some claims being adjudicated in, exactly like you said, a day or two and back in your bank account, which is incredible and was never the case. Even like 5 years ago, we weren't seeing that. So we're
no,
we're moving in the right direction there.
right. That's amazing for the entire revenue cycle, I think, because, the money is hitting your bank, it's being posted to the patient ledgers, and if they do have a balance after that, I mean, you can email a statement in, I mean, the entire revenue cycle could be closed in under a week. I like that.
Yeah. Pretty honestly, even like 5 years ago, that would be almost like unimaginable
Right.
for
That
for
would
some
be
people.
2 months. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
Maybe.
Still trying to collect on that fluoride from last year.
Yes, that third fluoride treatment that happened. Um, Another positive thing we're seeing is good vendor relationships and people still mattering. And what we were talking about just earlier was in-person meetings and connections still mattering. And I really like that. And I think we're kind of seeing some of these like larger conferences dissolve a little bit, but these smaller boutique conferences kind of blossom, which people are obviously leaning more toward. And
Yeah. Didn't we just saw that ADA announced that their
Yes.
meeting this year is their last one? They're not doing it anymore. So yeah, that's right
Yep.
in line with kind of that trend.
I'm hoping to see the ADA pop up with some smaller stuff for sure.
Yeah.
And more niche stuff. So it would be nice to see just more specialty or even just factions of different areas of dental operation. I mean,
Yeah.
niche down a little bit, ADA. So yes, people still mattering and people still wanting to make connections. I think that's refreshing. On the heels of what we were talking about earlier, COVID, is people still having this innate need to connect. So that's nice.
Yep.
All right, advice for the rest of 2025. Sarah, if you were still a practice manager, what would you be doing besides trying to ride out summer?
Yes, I think like we kind of touched on earlier is I would be trying to get a jump start on some of those admin duties that we tend to wait until January to do. Reviewing the schedule, checking, putting in holidays for next year's schedule. Like you don't have to wait till January to do that. Do it now for 2026's schedule, because also let us never forget that hygiene is always scheduling 6 months out. So at this point, now is actually the time to go make sure that you have your 2026 schedule the way that you want it. If you know doctor has a big vacation planned in May, go put that on the schedule now, because patients are going to be scheduling into that time before you know it. So take the time to do some things like that, to plan for those things that we're always waiting for the end of the year to do.
Yes.
Review your vendor list like we were talking about. Make sure that you're using all of these vendors and things that you're paying for. I think we see this a lot too in our personal lives, but like how many subscriptions are you paying for that you don't actually use? Like how many streaming services are you signed up for? But these things happen in the office too.
Yep, definitely.
Where if you're, you signed up for something that you had the best intentions of using in January and 5 months have passed and we didn't end up using that as much as we thought, like, okay, let's cut it out of the budget and save yourself for the rest of the year on things that you're not using.
I think we did end of the year checklist episode before, and what we talked about a lot in that episode was that these things do not have to wait till the end of the year.
Yes.
And they shouldn't. I mean, especially the schedule, especially seeing where you're at. I mentioned often that I I'm always reviewing our numbers and KPIs from the accountant. And this is a good time to say, okay, where are we at? What's our trajectory for the rest of the year? If we're trying to hit a certain goal here at the end of the year, we kind of know what we need to do. Like, are we okay? Or do we like really need to ramp up here or whatever it might be? So now is the time to like,
be proactive with it, right? Because
Yep.
now is the time where you have enough data to review how the first part of the year went and make some changes to be able to finish out the year strong, as opposed to making these reviews in December. Well, you can't make any changes at that point. Your end of year is already knocking on the door.
Yep. And I do know that some practices, it really depends, I think, geographically where you are and things, but some practices can like experience slowdown in the summer. And I think cleanup projects, practice management software cleanup projects are great for this time of year. So whether that's, inactivating patients who haven't been in however long, cleaning up your insurance company list, cleaning up your employer list, definitely always working on your past due claims. All of that kind of internal stuff that you've been like, oh, that I'll get to that when I have time. I think if you have slow time in the summer, now is that time. Sure.
Also, some like actual physical deep cleaning things, like actually cleaning in the office. Same thing. If doctor is taking a vacation and you've got assistants that, are able to still come in, now is the time to take everything out of the cupboards in the operatories and wipe everything down and check for expiration dates on supplies and how things are stocked in the stock room. Like all those now is the time to do that. People don't want to do that end of the year around the holidays. They got a million other things that they could be, working on or doing or whatever. Like do it now when everybody's on vacation.
You're right. A lot of doctors, well, and I mean staff too, but a lot taking vacation in the summer. And if you are still able to go in, just get organized. Make yourself a little to-do list. Scrub that operatory down with a toothbrush. All the things. I think it's all just about like checklists and organization when you're talking about cleanup projects. And it's so gratifying to be able to check them off. I love a good list.
Yes.
And then the last thing really is maybe just one or two quick wins that you can implement this week. One thing that we do at my practice, I sit down with one of our lead assistants every Friday and we say, what worked? What are 3 things that worked this week? And what are 3 things that didn't? And I remember when her and I first started doing this during COVID, it was like things that didn't work, working through lunch. And we haven't had to do that in a long time. So thank the Lord. But I like that. I like the week in review. You're not waiting till month's end. You're looking at a week at a time and you're trying to make improvements for that next Monday. So I think that quick little thing, I mean, you can do it with your doctor. You can do it with whomever you want, or even just yourself. Even if it's just for yourself. I like that.
That's what I was going to say too, is like, also remember that these wins don't have to be office wide. They don't have to be every team member. I mean, to be totally honest, for me in the last 2 weeks, I have been really putting a focus on making sure that I eat lunch. And when I eat lunch, I go sit outside or I sit somewhere other than my office. And that is a win for me. And it feels really good when I'm able to do it. And I'm like, out of my office eating. And I'm just like, oh, look at me actually doing what I said I was going to do and actually taking a few minutes for myself. But, those wins add up. So think about that for even for yourself too. Just find some little ways to prioritize you or prioritize things that are important to you and make them happen, follow through. And then that win will lead, build the momentum for you into something else. And then eventually you can build up to an office-wide win as well. Start little, start small.
Sarah does usually text me and say, well, I'm feeling good because the sun is out. And I got my lunch and I'm just sitting outside for a few moments here.
Listen, food, fresh air, sunshine. You can't, that's the best doctors and whatever that I could ever need in my life, honestly.
I'm trying to think of this. Oh, I think it was by Ina Garden. Hopefully I'm saying her name right. But she said this quote that was like, you can feel bad before you eat and after you eat, but not while you're eating. This is so true. So true. So enjoy those bites.
Well, or also truly too, and I would say tread lightly a little bit with this maybe, but if you notice somebody in the office isn't good at taking a break when they should, or isn't good, I don't know what, helping themselves in these, offer a gentle reminder to some people and be like, it's okay to take a lunch. I want you to take a lunch. Please go have a lunch. Sometimes people just need a little bit of a reminder or a little bit of bringing them back to reality in that regard. So don't be afraid to gently or kindly remind your friends and coworkers of stuff like that too.
Yes, that breaks are strongly enforced. All right, so that kind of wraps up our quick little mid-year check-in. I think from the podcast's point of view, we have a lot of exciting episodes and guests coming up, and we don't have a lot of guests on the podcast unless it's someone that we really like, trust, a vendor we've used. So everyone coming up is special. That's a good word.
Yes, we're excited for the rest of 2025 for the breath of fresh air for sure.
Yep, we are. So, all right. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.